The following is a high-five moment from highfivecasino.com.
I won! Yahoo! Private, put down your phone. This is the Army.
Sarge, High Five Casino is a social casino. It's on your phone. Goes wherever you go. I win free spins, cash, prizes, free daily rewards, over 1,200 games. I won again.
Platoon, present cell phone. High Five.
High Five.
Casino.
Casino.
Win at highfivecasino.com.
High Five Casino is a social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Conditions apply. See website for details.
High Five Casino.
The following is a high-five moment from highfivecasino.com.
Welcome to Burger Yippee. Would you like a hot apple pie today?
Yes, yeah, I won. Woohoo!
So that's a yes on the apple pie?
I just went big time playing High Five Casino on my phone. Real cash prizes, free daily rewards, over 1,200 games. Yeah.
So yes or no on the apple pie?
Whoa! I won again.
I'll take that as a yes. Drive around.
Have you had your high-five moment today? Only at highfivecasino.com.
High Five Casino is a social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Conditions apply. See website for details.
High Five Casino. High Five Casino.
High Five Casino is a social casino with real prizes and big Vegas hits at highfivecasino.com. The hottest games right from Vegas, and all winnings go straight to your bank account. Hundreds of exclusive games, free daily rewards, and come back to get free coins every 4 hours. Only at highfivecasino.com.
High Five Casino is a social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details at high5casino.com.
High Five Casino.
Welcome to the Dragon's Lair.
Hello and welcome to the Dragon's Lair podcast, your home all things Dragons RFC and rugby in the region. I'm Jamie, and joining me as always is Gavin Thomas. How are we doing, Gav?
Very well, Jamie, and enjoyed being one of the 200,000 at Cardiff City Stadium with you on the... I'm sure that's how many they said were present.
Oh dear, yeah, we'll talk about that later. Maybe the attendance figures were a little bit inflated, but yes, we will
a tad.
We'll do that later. Just a tad, yeah. You can find us at all the usual places: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and don't forget to follow us on our social media channels, Facebook and X. So tonight it's our last regular podcast of the season. We're going to review Judgement Day, and we're going to look back on what's been yet another tough season for the Dragons. And plus, we'll look inside our mailbox, where we'll be answering your questions. We've asked listeners to provide some comments and questions, which we're going to tackle later on. Looking forward to that. And to help us do that, we have a guest with us tonight. We have Dragon supporter and creator of the Attacking Scrum podcast, Ged Colleypriest. Jed, welcome to the pod. How are we?
I'm good, yeah. Thanks for having me on, boys. Nice to chat with you.
Good to have you
No problem
on.
at all. Nice to have a fellow long-suffering Dragons supporter on with us. We can share the pain now. This would be like therapy tonight, won't it, boys?
Yeah, it's much needed. Yeah, I think that's the main reason I've stuck with my podcast for 8 or 9 years. Is it's a kind of therapy.
Oh dear. Right, let's start off with a little bit of news then. So, as expected, Sam Hobbs has been named the new forwards coach for the Dragons. Hobbs has been, I think he's the busiest coach in rugby, because he's been the Dragons Academy head coach, he's been the forwards coach for Newport RFC, and he's been working with the Wales under-20s. So Di Flanagan has promoted him. And we know, of course, that Meffin and Luke Narroway have left their positions. So what do we think about that appointment? Any thoughts on that, Sam Hobbs becoming our new forwards coach? Are you happy with it?
I think it's a logical appointment, I would say. It doesn't quite have the same excitement as when Philo Tia was announced,
No,
if I'm honest. But, he says, the glass being half full, yeah, he's done a good job at Newport. Newport are probably the best forwards in the Welsh Prem. He's doing solid work with the Welsh under-20s, who are not pulling up trees, but that's not his fault. And he's done good work in the academy. We've got good youngsters coming through a Dragon, so positive things are happening there. Is it the appointment we need? Who knows? It's too early to make those calls. But we are making changes. We have said on this pod we need to make changes. We're doing it, and we can't criticise people for doing what we've asked.
No. What about you, Jed? Do you have any thoughts on the appointment? I mean, he is highly rated by those at the Dragons, and he has been helping out with our defence as well. So he has been quite busy. He's got a lot of experience now, working with the academies and the Wales under-20s and you put. So he's not totally inexperienced. It's not bad hire, is it? He's not going to break the bank either, really, is it?
No, I think we needed a freshen up. I think everyone would agree with that. I think it's a good point that Gav makes with regards to the Newport forwards. From what I've seen this season, that's been key to the successful season that they've had. And I think on a wider point, you want to see young Welsh coaches go through that kind of pathway. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work, but you want that to be the case. And it was one of the things that we wanted regional rugby to do, wasn't it? It wasn't just about the player base and strengthening that. We wanted it to be a route for coaches as well. So I do really hope it works. And as you say, he's highly rated. I think we needed a freshen up. I think I think the departing coaches, Mevin and Narraway, have done an admirable job. It's always going to be a tough assignment. I'm not expecting an international, an all black tight head to come in the closed season and turn things around there. So it's going to be a question of how you can develop the bulk of that squad, the bulk of the pack that are there. So, I think again the under-20s experience should hold him in good stead. There's still a lot of young players in and around that pack. So, I don't think it's a hugely surprising one, and I hope it proves to be a shrewd one.
Yeah, absolutely. Luke Narraway did a really good job on our line-out. We have got the best line-out out to the Welsh region statistically in the URC. I think we ranked 4th or 5th, so credit to Luke Narraway. The line-out is the one area of our game that's actually gone really well this season, especially our driving line-out as well. So,
attacking balls have been a strength this season, and there's not many things you can say that about this season.
No, like I said, it's one of the few areas of our game that has gone right. So
I would agree.
Yeah. So that's the news then. Just one little bit of news. Let's move on to Judgement Day then. Gav, we was there. It was nice to meet you for a pint, albeit briefly, but we did meet up, have a couple of jars, didn't we? Scarlets 32, Dragons 15. Let's be honest about this, boys. This was a low-quality game featuring two struggling teams. There's no doubt about that. Di Flanagan said after the game that he was very glad the season was over. Yeah, you're not the only one, Di. He went on to say it's been a tough season. There's games we should have won, games where we got battered, and today probably summed it up, where we had opportunities we didn't capitalise on. I'm proud of some of the things we've achieved and really gutted and disappointed in other things. Gav, this was another poor performance in what has been a poor season, isn't it? Let's be honest, this was a very disappointing end. Bit of a damn squid, really, wasn't it?
We don't like being negative. So
we try not to be. No, we don't.
No. I genuinely think it's the worst performance of the season.
No, worse than Cardiff? Can't be. No worse than Cardiff at the Arms Park.
No, I suppose you're right in some ways, but then in other ways, it just felt inept at times. I just couldn't work out what was happening. Second half, we played some sensible rugby, but for the first half, apart from the first 5 minutes, and my son, who is 10 and still full of the optimism of youth, said, "Oh, Dragons might win this," and then that quickly burst. Because, again, oh God, if there's a drinking game connected to this pod, I apologise to the people who
say it, Gav. Say the line. Go on, we'll do a sit-sit. Say the line, Bart. Go on, say
I've got a number of lines, and I apologise for the people who are about to drink themselves into a medical coma. But I lack leadership.
There it is.
we got the basics wrong. We lacked any sense of defensive structure, and when we did get the ball, to call it pedestrian was being polite. And for the first 50 minutes, it was absolutely littered with errors. Yeah, absolutely littered with errors. And unnecessary trying to push play. Rio, who has been great this season, there was no need for that offload.
Mm.
Because we're trying to push play. We don't need to be doing that. Just logic, play rugby in the right parts of the field.
Yeah, I've got to talk about that Rio thing because
Well,
you've
it
seen
is
the
your
message.
fault.
That
It is your fault, Jamie, yeah.
This is kind of my fault. So I'll just explain the story. Julia, who was Rio's mum, she's a lovely lady. I first met her. Well, we've always engaged on social media, but I met her in person down at the Swansea.com. We had a nice chat. And then I met her again on the train in Newport down to Cardiff for Judgement Day. So we had a little chat. And I said to her that, I got a good feeling that Rio's going to score today. She went, "No, really?" I said, "Yeah, I got a good feeling about it. I think Rio's going to score." And obviously, we saw what happened. But she messaged me this evening. Well, she messaged the pod and she said, "Great pod with Rhiannon and Garth Jones. Really enjoyed that one." That was when we did our Scarlets preview. Also, just to ask if Jamie's train predictions to be kept to a minimum next season, as Rio's scoring was supposed to be for us, not giving it away to the opposition. Have a great break, both. Roll on next season. Yeah, so, she's a lovely lady. But yeah, I do apologise. I do feel partly responsible. I should have kept my fat trap shut, really, shouldn't I? So if I hadn't said anything, Rio might have scored. I don't know. But yeah, I did feel for him. It's just one of those things, isn't it?
Yeah, I slightly differ on that one. I think I can kind of forgive that because it was late in the, well, not late in the game, but the damage was done at that point. And I know if not on the scoreline in terms of momentum, and I can see why you'd try and force things a bit. I didn't mind the kind of the attacking intent that we showed at points. It's just, again, the execution was awful. And it's these flat spots that the Dragons are kind of continually hit, particularly in away games, where they just vanish for 10, 15-minute spells, and that's it, game gone. And then it doesn't matter if you have a spirited fight back in the second half. It keeps it, you can't win games from those positions. And I think it's really disappointing because to finish the season with a win in a derby at Judgement Day just gives you some bit of boost to morale. And this is a really poor Scarlet side. It's probably the weakest since regional rugby began, and I think they were there for the taking, really. So it's another missed opportunity. But yeah, I mean, Di's right. The season can't come to an end. Couldn't have come to an end sooner.
The game was two bold men fighting over a comb, really, wasn't it? It was poor.
Yeah, it was. I think what disappointed me, though, was we showed a bit of confidence going into this game because we named our team 48 hours early. So we did a Gatland, essentially, and named our team a bit earlier. And they thought, "Oh, that's bold. That's confident of the Dragons to do that." I couldn't understand why we did it, to be honest with you, but I liked it. Puts the pressure on Scarlets. We've had a good run over the Scarlets in Judgement Day as of late. We'd already beaten them at Rodney Parade. Okay, we got slightly lucky because of Costello's missed kick in front of the post, but nonetheless, we saw them off and we won. And we had a very good chance to do the double over them. And like Jed said, they were there for the taking. Poorest Scarlet side in a long time. And yet we put in a performance like that, and they finished 11 points ahead of us now in the table. And this was the season where we really could have and should have overtaken them. I felt like this should have been the season where we wasn't the worst Welsh team for a change. And it's now 16 out of 21 times in the league now that we've finished bottom of the Welsh pile. And it's not good enough, boys. Something's got to change. We cannot continue like this. And it's just another missed opportunity. But, there were positives from that game. I mean, in defeat, we always have to take the positives, of course. But Joe Westwood looks like a really super talent, doesn't he? How good was he? Played for the full 80, carried well.
Got to get him on the ball. He's just get him on the ball as much as possible. He causes problems. He breaks tackles. He's got a good turn of pace, and he seems to have a bit upstairs as well. Knowing when to hold on and when to look for contact. And yeah, he's made a really impressive start.
He's the player that people think Mason Grady is. I think his carrying is more destructive in the centres than Mason Grady's carrying. I think Mason Grady is a good winger, isn't necessarily a centre. I think Westwood uses his feet, his size, and his brain. As you said, Jed, I think he uses all of those quite sensibly. And for a big, hard carrying centre, there's a lot of thinking going on there, which you don't always see in those kind of players.
Yeah, absolutely. Another positive from the game was Dimitri Hayek. So the scrum was struggling, as we know. And then in the second half, changes were made. So Martinez comes on the loose and Dimitri Arhip comes on. And my goodness, he took Wyn Jones to the cleaners, didn't he? Now, I like Wyn Jones, British and Irish Test Lion. Let's not forget, not that long ago. My God, he folded him like a deck chair. He absolutely destroyed that start scrum in the second half. And I have no doubt that he will be given a new deal. He'll be given at least another year by the Dragons. I think that's the right thing, because we're not used to having strong scrummage and tight head at the Dragons, as we all know. But that really did impress me.
My question, though, would be, Jamie and Jed, you might know this as well. Can he do 80 minutes? He hasn't done 80 minutes.
I don't think he can do 30 minutes.
No, he can do bursts, can't he? Yeah. He's got 25 minutes in him.
Yeah, but even that, I can't imagine he'd be, he's going to be commanding a huge salary.
No,
it's brilliant a scrummager. I agree. I just want him somewhere in the squad, because you just think those games that you're in when it's 16-all with 15 minutes to go, to be able to come on and have someone shore up a scrum or win you the scrum penalty, and he's got that experience, that nous, and he's just a scrummager. That's what he does. He does one thing really, really well, and it's something that we have not had in the squad for a very long time. So yeah, I mean, I'd offer him a new deal, certainly.
It's a bloody hard game if you don't have the ball, and having a solid scrum that allows you to recycle a ball and get the ball out is a massive benefit. It sounds like I'm talking ridiculously kind of basic stuff, but it's true. And we have struggled off set piece ball and off first phase ball, because even when we do win scrum ball, we're under pressure.
Yeah, I agree. Co Tompkinson, he did well off the bench, didn't he? He's leaving the club. It's a shame. I think that's from the budget cuts more than anything else. So it is 25 minutes off the bench. He made three clean breaks and scored 2 tries.
Yeah, took his opportunity as well, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it's a shame to lose him, but I put that down to budget cuts more.
I would have liked to have seen a few more of those performances over the 2 seasons he's been there, though. It's been a little bit in and out. He's obviously got quality. And he's playing in a struggling side, so it's not all on him. But yeah, like you said, it feels like it's a player who's obviously got some class, but just haven't seen not to my knowledge too many of those performances over the few seasons he's been there.
I think that this season he played well against Edinburgh at the start, and he played well against Scarlets at the end. But I'm struggling to think of anything else that stands out.
He was really good against Munster last season. When we beat Munster, he was really good in that game. Really, really good. I tell you a player I am impressed with. I don't want to get your boys' opinion on him. Is Chris Hollis. So he's the South African wing that came from the Stormers. Now, he couldn't get into the team because they got so much depth, so much quality. He did look a little bit rusty playing against the Stormers, but against the Ospreys, and I thought again in Cardiff against the Scarlets, he carried really well, and he looks a bit of a threat. He's a big guy. Every time he gets the ball, he looks like he can do a bit of damage. What do you make of him so far, Jed? Do you think it's worth signing him up on a permanent deal?
Based on the last 2 games, I think you'd certainly be having a good look at him. Fitness would be the only concern, wouldn't it? Really, I suppose that he's not been, he's not been playing regular rugby for a while. But if he's all right on that front, everything else looks, like you say, he's strong. There's some decent handling skills in there. Looks good enough under the high ball. Can play centre. Can play wing. I think it would add. It would be a good addition to the squad in my opinion, providing that. That he's got the fitness, because we don't, you're not going to be able to afford to carry anyone with the budget constraints you've got.
He goes looking for work as well. I thought I was really impressed with his work rate on Saturday. And what I liked about him, he is a big guy, a bit like Joe Westwood as well, though. Doesn't necessarily just look for the bosh. He looks for space. He's trying to use his brain. And I thought he looked, in the first half, he looked the one player who did offer a bit of attacking nous and threat, really. So I would hope we could hold on to him. And I've said on a number of occasions how much I love Jared Rosser. He's probably an upgrade on Jared, if I'm honest, I think, when he's fully fit.
Well, we'll have to see. I think the proof's in the pudding on. I want to see him do a full season first because we do like Jared, but he's got something different, isn't he? I think he's different to Jared. I think he offers more of a physical threat with ball in hand.
It feels like the back line is taking on a bit more of a physical trait for next season. If he were to come in, obviously Westwood's going to play a lot more. I think the Australian lad whose name escapes me who's coming in,
Harry Wilson.
Who's I should remember that 'cause it's the same as the football, isn't it? But he's I think again he's a strong carrier, isn't he? So again, I think
he's big.
We know it's such a collisions-based game, and if you just be the ability to have some players in the backs who are happy to truck it up and like you say, you look for space as well if it's on. But I think just having a bit more physicality in the back line is probably not a bad thing.
No, but other than that, though, very little positives to take out of the game. It was another weak performance, I thought. The game was over at half-time, 17-3. Because I said to James from the Rap pod, he was with me, I said, it's game over now. He's like, oh, it depends who scores first. You have. I was like, nah. I knew the Dragons were going to come back from that.
So I'm
very
going to ask a question.
Oh, go on then.
I've got a question of you too. So I've been, I've said on this pod a number of times, I like watching exciting rugby, but in terms of me as a coach, I play very defensive and very territory-minded rugby because I think it's better to win games than it is to look lovely. We as a team are trying to play creative rugby. Is that the wrong decision? Should Dragons actually say, no, we're going to play a different kind of rugby? It might not be as pretty, but hopefully it will be more successful.
Jed, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, there's a massive hopeless romantic in me when it comes to rugby. But I just think winning rugby consistently winning looks so far away from the Dragons at the moment, based on the last decade. That's the problem. Is I'd kind of rather see, I guess, a bit like Cardiff have done this season, where they've got a very good style of rugby that's good to watch and they chuck it about and it's nice and it's pretty. They haven't won many games, but it's been entertaining while doing it. I'd probably rather see us go down all guns blazing and trying to play than trying to grind out and getting done in an arm wrestle. But I completely get your point. I can't remember if it was before we came on air, but about playing in the right areas. I think you can do a bit of both. I don't think it just needs to be stuff it up the jumper, because I don't think that'll get us anywhere. But yeah, I definitely err in favour of going a bit more attacking over conservative.
See, for me, I don't think we found a style that suits us yet, because we tried to play jouer rugby. We tried to play like Bristol do, chuck the ball about. The problem is I don't think we got the skill set to do it. And you can see that because we make too many errors, lots of handling errors. And we can't play a physical dominating game like the Ospreys do because we haven't got the pack. We haven't got the physicality. Now, with these players that we got coming in next season, Funaki, Shane Lewis-Hughes, Harry Wilson, maybe we'll see a different style of play. We'll be a bit more direct. But as you know, we can't play that way at the moment. So we need to decide on a style and a system that suits the Drags. And right now, it's like we're struggling for an identity. But you can see what we're trying to do, but I just don't think we're good enough. We haven't quite got that skill set to execute at the moment. And worryingly, the basics. We can't even do the basics. No. And that's a struggle.
And I think that's my issue with playing champagne and chips rugby like we're trying to. That's great if you've got players who make good decisions, if the kicking game is accurate, and things like passing and defensive structure are happening fairly consistently. But it's not.
No, that's true.
The identity thing is really key, right? Because regional rugby, it should be ingrained into the region what the identity is. And I mean, right the way down to when you first pick up a rugby ball, it should be this is the way we play. And as a result, we appoint coaches who coach in this way, and we bring through players with the skill set in order to do this. And we might, like you say, we can't even decide what the first team's style of play is, yet alone, what the whole identity is throughout the regional rugby setup.
And the thing is, I'm an old man, so I have a different view of it, I suppose. But there is a regional identity, for want of a better phrase, in Gwent. Gwent Rugby has had an identity for decades. Gwent Rugby is physical. Gwent Rugby is forward dominated. Gwent Rugby is based on tactical kicking. If you look at the backs that we've produced, we haven't produced many top level backs over the last 50 years beyond 10. And I'm talking about the old clubs, the Ebbvales, the Pontypools, so whoever's. But look at the forwards we have produced. Look at the tight 5 players we have produced in our county. So
Pontypool front row and all that, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the second row, and there were top level players from other countries playing rugby in Gwent. Colin Smart, the former Newport prop, name check him. I'm very close friends with his brother, but he was one of the top props. But he was playing in Newport, in the 70s and the early 80s. I'm captain Newport to account. There is a Gwent style.
Maybe that's the answer, Gav. Maybe that is it. Well, look, this is what we should be doing, and going back to what Gwent Rugby is about. And if you produce good hard forwards, that should be the blueprint, and that should be, again, to go back to that point. Well, that maybe that's it. Maybe the Dragons should be trying to play this way, and as a result, trying to produce the players who are capable of doing that. But everyone should know it should be a thing.
Yes,
you
agree.
Make a good point.
Yeah, and I'm also realistic that I'm talking about stuff that happened 5 decades ago. But the Scarlet, the Scarlet style is based on what Llanelli were like 5 decades ago, and the Cardiff style is based on what Cardiff were like 5 decades ago.
No, I agree. You make a fair point. Yeah, I understand what you're saying there. Defence has been an issue, as we know, because we didn't have a defence coach. And there's a pretty damning statistic that came out this week from the URC. So the Dragons were the only team in the league that didn't make a single dominant tackle on the weekend. They also had the poorest rate of tackle success, 72%, 72.3%. What do you think of that, boys? Does that surprise you?
That's higher than I thought it was.
Really?
That's genuinely higher than I thought it was.
But we're the only team in the league this weekend to not make a single dominant tackle. Now, that's what Field TAT's got to work with, mind.
Yeah.
That is what he's got to work with.
That's the worrying thing, is because, look, the defence has been awful all season, and you can point to that and say, we don't have a defence coach. What do you expect? All the other teams do. Are you going to be better at defending by not having a specialist coach? Of course not. However, you don't need a defence coach to tell you how to perform a dominant tackle. You go and do it.
Yeah.
If you're leaking tries because your system isn't right, that's one thing. But to just to not make dominant tackles, that's not a system problem. That's just down to being there and doing it. So yeah, I don't know. It's a really weak it's a really weak way to end the season, as we were saying. And look, from everything I've heard about Philo Tier from players who've been from players who played with him at the Ospreys, the standards he will drive will be, that's not to say it's going to work and it's going to be a complete miracle, but he's not going to accept a game where statistics are coming in like that. He won't be accepting it. No way.
But I would say we've got a bit of expectation management. He's not Harry Potter, he's not going to be able to wave a wand and make us really defensively stronger, it's hard yards, and it's our hard work in training, our hard work over the summer that's really going to be important now. And I think and he needs to start from ground zero as that, boys. Yeah. This is what I expect. This is what tackling looks like now. This is what defensive structure looks like. And don't make assumptions that the players know how to do it.
No, that's right. I made exactly the same point you just made there on Wrap on Monday night. Tia is a very good coach. He's a very good appointment, but let's not get our hopes up. This guy, like you said, Gav, we haven't got a magic wand. You can't just expect the guy to just come in and turn around, years of failure and underachievement. It's not going to work like that. It's not going to work overnight. But you look at Juan Gatlin's comments this week. He talked about players need to kick up the arse. Well, that applies to the Dragons as well. And I'm not going to name names, but I think we could all agree there are players in that team that need a bloody good kick up the arse. And there's one man to do it. It's going to be Field Tia. Now, Dean Ryan did it to a degree, and then it went sour. unfortunately. I think TNT is the kind of guy who will command a bit more respect. I think the players are going to really look up to him because he will command respect. So fingers crossed on that one.
I don't think it helps with Dean Ryan that he came across like the deputy head in a slightly underperforming comprehensive school whenever he was being kind of stern about the players. It's probably not going to land well with the player. Yeah, and I like Dean Ryan as a coach, and I really like Dean Ryan as a player, but it didn't come across particularly strong when he was trying to be that strong character. But, and I'm not criticising Darry Flanagan. Sometimes, again, he doesn't come over with that same level of passion. It's the post-match comments on Saturday just felt a bit underpowered.
Yeah, that's a criticism that's been levelled at Darry Flanagan a lot, is he too nice? Does he command respect? Does he lay down a lot? Do players really hang on this everywhere? Like, you look at Toby Booth and you get the impression that there's a really good culture there and the players are fighting hard for him and they hang on to his every word. Is that having the drags with Darry Flanagan? I don't know, but a lot of people do say he's a bit too quiet and nice for the role. But behind closed doors, we don't know, do we? It might be different, but he does come across as sort of man,
Surely
what's
Toby
the word?
Toby Booth just spends all his... Yes, mild-mannered, certainly. But
mild, yeah.
Surely Toby Booth just spends all his time tapping a sign that says believe.
Well, like you said, he's a bit Ted Lasso, isn't he? I understand now why you call him Ted Lasso, but to be fair, it works, but it works.
Yeah, it does.
It works, and the players work. The players do work hard for him. So let's talk about Judgement Day itself. There's been a lot of talk about it. The attendance, 20,000 they came into, just over 20,000. Gav, we were there. Never in a month for Sundays were there 20,000 people there.
No.
So there was probably 20,000 tickets sold, or they might have included regional season ticket holders. But I'm telling you now, there was not 20,000 people there. That is just simply incorrect.
I think at its most full, there were 16,000 tops, I would suggest. Yeah. There were guys sat in front of me who were there for the Scarlets game, left at the minute of the Scarlets game, and then about half a dozen Cardiff fans turned up and sat next to myself and my son during the Cardiff game. But there was lots of people left after the first game or arrived after the first game. It didn't feel like an event.
20,167 was the official attendance, but there was definitely more people in for the second game than the first, wasn't there? What did you make of the Judgement Day experience as a whole, Gav, at the Cardiff City Stadium? Did you feel it was a success? Did it work for you? How did you feel about it?
Right, so I'm doing this through a slightly different filter, I suppose. I'm not been to the ones at the Millennium, and I had a 10-year-old with me, so it's a slightly different thing. Now, he really enjoyed it. He enjoyed it. Got to see 2 games of rugby. He really enjoyed the kind of sense that he could sit around with fans of other teams. It felt quite an event for my son. As for me, it felt a bit underpowered, I would suggest. Yeah, I don't know, nobody seemed to really be enjoying it. And I was chatting to the people around me, there were a group of Osprey fans, and they were there for both games, but they like the dad said, he said, well, it's not the Millennium, is it? And the Cardiff fans next to me were just full of hatred for the WRU. And it wasn't like kind of really unnecessary. It just said, we don't feel they care about us as a club. And he said, I'm glad it's here because I don't want to put another penny in their pockets. And all I got was this real sense of Welsh rugby in this state of disarray almost.
Well, I suppose it is really, isn't it? Now, Jed, you watched the game, didn't you? Well, 2 games you watched from home, I believe. What did you make of it? How did it come across to you on TV? Because watching our first game, it was quite flat.
It was really flat on the telly. It felt flat on the telly. Okay. And yeah, I was really intrigued to get your take on it because I was watching it from home. Yeah, it definitely felt flat. It was just kind of, I guess the attendance figures were before the figures came out. It was obvious that it was nowhere near full, and And it's, you're not trying to fill the millennium. You're trying to fill what is the Cardiff City saying? 30?
35.
35.
Oh, so yeah. 33, yeah.
So that came across. It was flat. The rugby didn't help because it was a really poor quality game with nothing riding on it. No, I think that definitely changed because I thought the Ospreys Cardiff game was really good. It really helped that there was some unexpected jeopardy into the mix, and the fact that the Ospreys had a chance to secure that final playoff spot, which they did. It just meant there was something on the line, which for me, it baffles me why you do this at the end of the season. Why would you do it at the end of the season when there's every chance that there's nothing to play for the teams? Whereas at the start of the season, and also, to go to your point, Gav, you've taken your son. He's had a really good experience, and turns around and says, right, okay, when's the next game we can go and watch? Oh well, September. You lose all that momentum, don't you? There's a hell of a lot of stuff that happens in between, especially in an age where you've got all different kinds of entertainment that you're trying to compete for a younger fan. So if that's at the start of the season, you've at least got a bit of momentum to go on and to build on.
The time for me to do it is Boxing Day.
People want like that. They don't want to lose their home games on Boxing Day. I think it should be earlier in the season, like maybe like a Black Friday or like at the beginning of the season. But I don't think people will go for Boxing Day. But I do agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm an old man, but I just remember Derby games on Boxing Day. I remember watching Eberville Tredegar, Eberville Newport, Eberville Pontypool on Boxing Day. And it just felt a bit of event, you kind of...
I think Boxing Day is the only time not the only time. That's the best look for Welsh regional rugby is on Boxing Day. Regardless of what the games do, people turn up for those games because, and I think, a certain degree of that will be because you remember the Boxing Days of old and that tradition that goes with it. But it's always a derby game, and it just means that there is an event feel to it. And I think, from watching on the telly and the Judgement days I've been to in the past, it feels like it's trying to create an event out of something that isn't quite there. There's all too often there's not enough on the line for it to be proper and meaningful.
Because I would say the tickets were reasonably priced.
They were.
I spent less than £60 for two of us to watch rugby. And we had good seats, actually. We had very good seats. And on the 10-metre line, kind of about halfway up the stand, lovely seats, great view of the ground. So I think it's reasonably priced, but reasonably priced, low quality product is low quality product no matter what the price is. And that's Judgement Day's challenge at the minute. And to be fair, I thought the Dragons Osprey game was very good. Cardiff Ospreys game. No, the Cardiff Ospreys game was very good. Very entertaining. Two sides who were trying to play rugby and could play that form of rugby.
Yeah, it was one of the best Welsh derbies I think we've seen in a long time. I think for me, it was okay. Judgement Day, this was probably the worst one I've been to, though. I didn't have a terrible time. I mean, it wasn't helped by the fact that Dragons were so poor. If Dragons had won, maybe I feel a little bit better. But it was okay. I mean, I don't mind the Cardiff City Stadium, but obviously having it there wasn't ideal. We did have to walk from the city centre to the CCS. It took us about 25 minutes, half hour. Obviously, you want the benefit of being in the pub before and into the stadium, didn't we? We're lucky with the location of the Principality Stadium. Gav, you had issues with the shuttle buses, didn't you? Because they weren't supporters buses. What was all that about? So it was a bit chaos there, wasn't it?
It was just a bit chaotic and it wasn't really clear where to get on. So in the end, I just thought it was easy to get a cab. It was easy to get a cab. Cost me about a tenner. That was fine. And I would have happily walked, but my son wanted to see the warm-ups and stuff, which again, that's part of what we do when we go to watch sports. So I get all of that. I think, I'm going to go again next year. We talked about that when we were driving back home after the game, and my son said, "Oh, we're going to go again next year." And I said, "I definitely will. It would be great if it's at the Principality."
It should be, yeah.
I imagine it will be.
And then, it's just much easier, isn't it? You're right there, you're in the heart of it. But I thought the Cardiff City Stadium did a solid job. I did thought it was quite amusing that when I got out to the cab and we came round the corner in Ninian Park Station, and the first thing I saw was a massive circus tent. And I thought,
it's fine, the stadium itself. I'd like to go there to watch Wales football. That's why I like to. I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, and that's the event that that's nailed, and we look on with envy of the way that the FAW have gone about things in the relationship that they have between the supporters. I'm sure we haven't got time to go into all of that now, but as a stadium it works for that for those events where it's packed and it's rocking, and they've just done all those things right, the FAW. Whereas at the moment, as with everything in the WRU is kind of vaguely close to, it's just a bit cobbled together. It's not it's not coherent.
And the WR, I think the difference is the FAW have just really embraced fan culture, about the way they use Dymer O'Heed. Everything is just this real embrace. What is Welsh football culture? We understand it. We're going to embrace it. Whereas the WRU is a bit like, well, hang on a second. You stand over there. We'll stand over there, over here. Here's your product. Leave us alone. And it's just weird. It's alienating its core people.
Yeah, I always think Judgement Day is a good event, though. Like, it's a good social event, and it was great to meet up with you, Gav. In person, I met James in person, I met Yestin and Catboy. It's a good meet-up to get with mates and stuff, and that's what I've always liked about it. But I do think the CCS was never the ideal location. People were never going to sell that stadium out. It's out of the city centre. There is a little bit of apathy going on at the moment with Welsh Rugby. And next time, if we have this situation where the Principality Stadium is not available, just scrap it. Don't have it. Just let the regions have their home games. Don't do this again. Because James said to me, maybe it should be at Swansea.com instead. It's like, no, just
that's even worse. That's an even worse ground.
Just scrap it. I said, next time, just let the regions have their home games. Don't attempt this again. As much as I don't mind the CCS, for me, it was a decent day out. It was good to meet up with people, but it didn't quite work. And the first game, the atmosphere was flat.
Yeah.
So,
did you ever go to the old Ninian Park?
No, I didn't.
It was, my first visit to CCS had been to Ninian Park a number of times. Very different atmosphere to Ninian Park in the late 80s and early 90s.
Oh, I can imagine, yeah. Okay,
that was a place.
I bet. So that's Judgement Day done. Anyway, disappointing end to a disappointing season. Now, I want to move on to Wales, because the Wales squad was named this week. 5 Dragons have been named in Warren Gatland's 36-man Wales squad for this summer's matches against South Africa and Australia. Now, that's going to be cut to 34 men before they go out to Australia. So, the Dragons that have been selected are Elliot D, Ben Carter, Matthew Screech. Did any of you see that one coming? I certainly didn't. His last appearance for Wales, but stop laughing, Gav. His last appearance for Wales was against Argentina in 2021. And then, of course, you got Aaron Wainwright and Rio Dyer. I'm going to come to you guys now, but I think this is one of the strangest squad selections Warren Gatland has ever made. So there's only one out-and-out number 10 in the squad, which is Sam Costello. He selected 5 tight end props, but only 3 loose heads, and there's 4 hookers. There's no captain named, so we don't know who the captain's going to be for these games. He's brought back Liam Wales from Japan, fine. I could kind of, see that coming. He's also selected former Dragon Corey Hill, who, as we know, had a very unfortunate incident, left Welsh Rugby under a cloud, ran off to Japan, has been playing 4th Division rugby, and now he's been recalled. Doesn't exactly scream ideal preparation for games against South Africa or Australia, does it? So,
in Corey Hill's,
what do you think of it?
In Corey Hill's defence, he's been playing 3rd Division rugby, but other than that, absolute wrong.
He's going to be promoted to 3rd. He's actually playing 4th now. Then he'll be promoted to 3rd.
Oh, so yeah. I won't even say that in his defence. Nothing in his defence. I'll be interested to hear what Jed's view on it, because I don't.
Well, first of all, then, think about that now. Then, so Jed, I'll come to you. First of all, Corey Hill. What did you make of that? Should he be back in the Wales squad? I know we're struggling for lots, but Is there an issue there? Because for me, it just leaves a sour taste in my mouth, given everything that happened. Given the fact, mate, he has never made a public apology about it. He made an indirect apology, never publicly apologized, nor has made a personal apology to the victims, just bear that in mind. And then the squad itself. So, yeah, plenty for you to get your teeth into there.
Yeah, I don't like it one bit.
No.
Starting with the off-the-field stuff, okay, we all know what happened was incredibly unsavoury. I can't understand why there's no public apology. I don't get Warren Gatland's defence of, that was dealt with by Cardiff at the time, let's move on. Not having that, sorry. When you pull on the Welsh jersey, you're representing your country, and this is something that this is the first time you'd be doing that post this event happening. So it's not. I don't think it's good enough to sweep it under the carpet, and at risk of getting really kind of wanky PR terms about it. The optics of it stink because this is less than 18 months ago. You've got Steve Phillips leaving under a cloud of an organisation mired in sexism, misogyny, and racism. This is not a good look. And being completely cynical about it, you're not doing it for Dan Carter, the second coming of Dan Carter. You're doing it for a guy who, and I'm on the record numerous times as saying how highly I rated Corey Hill as a player, and his pig absolutely superb. But you're taking a punt on a guy who's not playing, who's not even playing top flight Japanese rugby. So I think they're inviting in a lot of criticism and have handled it badly. So it doesn't sit well with me.
And my personal opinion, and this is my personal opinion, is I understand the rugby players are doing a job. Professional rugby is a job that these people do, but it is a job in the public eye. It is a job, I work in education. No children look at work I do and dream, I wish I could do that. But children do look at professional rugby players. Your players like myself look at professional rugby players and say, that is what I want to be doing. And if we are putting in front of the public and in front of children, people like Corey Hill, and saying this is a role model, we are doing the wrong thing. It's not about ability. It's about being a rugby player is more than what you can do on the field. Being a rugby player is about what you represent. And if this is what we're choosing to represent us, it's the wrong thing to do. It's my opinion. And there's no legal issues to it. He did a bad thing. That's fine. We all make mistakes. Apologise. Be strong about it. He hasn't done that, and he has to, for me.
Yeah, don't be surprised if there's a redemption narrative coming soon, and he does address it, and he does make an apology for it,
Okay.
just for the PR side of it. But no, that's what I think will happen, but it still won't convince me, really. So what do we think of the squad as a whole then, Jed? So when you looked at that squad, given the fact I mentioned earlier, no captain and the loose heads, tight heads and Marville, average age of 25, what stood out to you? I tell you what we did learn. Warren Gatland does not like Morgan Morris, does he? And he's never going to pick him. So we need to just shut up about it now.
Yeah, I feel for him.
I do.
He's playing great rugby, but I do get the call, right? Wainwright is your proven international 8, right? He's superb. We know that he's proven at that level, and he's been reinvigorated in the last 12 months in a red jersey, either at 6 or 8. So he's class. So he's your starting 8 with Toby injured. So then your question is, well, I'm not going to take 3 8s in the squad. So do I take Mackenzie Martin, who you think is a really bright prospect, and it's not that Morgan Morris is over the hill or anything like that, but again, he's an out and out 8. I would just put it down to the fact that Mackenzie Martin has got the higher ceiling. The one I find stranger is Nicky Smith. Now, Nicky Smith has been tearing up scrums in Europe for the last 2 seasons. Gatland knows him. He's capped him a number of times. He was a bit of a Gatland favourite in the squads when he was a younger player. That's the one I don't understand. There's something, and successive coaches have overlooked it. Pivac never rated Nicky Smith either, whereas I think he's been consistently the best loose head in Wales this season.
Agreed.
I think Nicky Smith, who I've not historically been a great fan of, but I think you're absolutely right. He has been the best loose head in the country. And when you look at that front row, it doesn't really fill you. it's not. I'm not being critical, but like guys like Kieran Azarati and Corey Domikowski, and I know they're different positions and stuff, but they're good club players, but are they international players? And I think that's the problem we've got now with the squad. You look at it and you think, yeah, there's lots of good club players there. I'm not sure how many international players are there. And we've got what we've got. You can't magic stuff out of the air.
No, I get what you're saying. I don't mind Domachowski. I think he's done okay. I think there are question marks over Kieran Azarati and guys like Harry O'Connor and Kemsley Mathias. But they are inexperienced as well.
I think Domikowski is the stronger of those kind of that run of players. And what's the guy from Bath?
Archie Griffin.
Yeah, that is absolutely bewildering. I'm sure he could be a good player, but
I mean that's where we are in terms of tight heads, though, isn't it? Obviously, he's not considering Francis at the moment. Henry Thomas is back in, which I think is, I think it makes sense because he can scrum. We know he can scrummage at club level. He's played a lot of rugby in the top 14, and in the Premiership. So, that's I suppose a bit more reassuring as a stopgap. But the fact that there are 5 tight heads in there tells us, it's almost like has anyone got tight head mates they can bring along and we'll give them a go and see. And that sounds disrespectful to the players. The point is that no one knows if Harry O'Connor is an international prop yet. No one knows if Archie Griffin is because they barely played any rugby. So you're completely gambling and hoping. But that's where we are. We're trying to build a squad for the next World Cup, aren't we? To be honest.
And I'm going to pull positivity out of the air now. When Thomas Francis was first selected, then nobody really thought, oh, there's an international tight head. It was like, who the hell's this guy? And he did become an international tight head. And he, again, kind of a player I've always liked Thomas. So maybe it will happen. My problem is Thomas came into a side where there was established players around him. He was surrounded by quality. And we bring in guys like Azarati, like Archie Griffin, like Kemsley Mathias, into not quality, and that's my fear.
Yeah, I get that. From a Dragons point of view, then notable omissions: Kai Evans and Tane Basham, 2 players that were included in the Six Nations squad. How do we feel about that? Do you think they're unlucky to miss out, or do you think, fair enough? How do you feel about that, Jed?
Basham's not had his best season, but has been playing a lot better in the last few appearances. I wouldn't have been surprised to see him go just because of that. It's kind of the opposite to Morgan Morris, is because he can do 6, 7, 8. I think he's international quality, and on his day he's very explosive. He's played a lot of rugby for a guy who is 25 maybe. Basham, first regional games of rugby age kind of 17 and stuff, or 17, 18. He's played a lot of rugby. But also, I'm not surprised to not see him in there because he hasn't been in his blistering form this season. Kai Evans, I've kind of yet to be convinced that from what I've seen this season that he's the answer at either 10 or 15 at international level. I think based on those appearances. So I don't know. I wasn't overly surprised there. But I mean, the big surprise is that there's only one recognised 10 in the squad. That's the thing that, it's almost a bit of a statement that we are backing this guy to the hill, and he's going to be our 10.
And
Ben Thomas as well is being touted as a 10 of Jacob Beetham, but I remain a bit unconvinced because they're not going to play 10 for Cardiff, are they? No. These guys, that's the problem here, isn't it?
I like Thomas as a 10, as a 12.
I think he's an excellent 12.
And I think he brings I've watched him a few times this season, but watched him on live on Saturday. He really I thought he brought a bit of magic to that Cardiff attack, because it's a different kind of 12. He's not looking for contact. He's trying to create space. He's trying to create opportunities. And I really liked him as a second playmaker. He's not a 10 though, because 10 is a different kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. But
And defensively, I thought he was secure as well, because a number of people have said to me, "Oh, I'm not sure about his defence."
No, I don't think that's a concern for me.
No, I thought his defence was solid.
I mean, with Tame Basham, I mean, Jed is right. It hasn't been a great season for Tame. Let's be honest. He's played well in patches, but I think it's been a season to forget. I am glad that he's staying with us, though. So I do think he's a very talented player.
Yeah.
So that is a boost for us. Kai Evans, I don't think he got a fair crack of the whip for the Six Nations. He didn't barely get any game time. He only brought him on for a couple of minutes against England. I think I would have liked to see him have a few more minutes, because I know a lot of people saying the international standard. Maybe they're right, but can we at least see him have a run of games or get some more minutes under his belt and then make that decision? I don't know, but
and we like him, don't we, Jamie? We like
we do
Kai
like
Evans.
Yeah. Well, we are fans of Kai Evans. Yeah. I'm not sure why, but we are fans of him. And, maybe he is an international standard. But like I said, I don't think he's ever really got a fair crack of the whip. And I do think he gets a lot of stick purely just for being Kai Evans' dad, which I think is really unfair, actually. You can't help that, can he? And he's a decent player.
So I'm going to ask a question now. And I just... Alex Mann, I thought played well during the Six Nations on the squad. Do you think it's just now? I think he's already started to decide on his back row: Morgan, Rafael, Wainwright, and then.
Yeah, but you know what the problem with Mann was, didn't it? He was too lightweight, and even Gatlin said he needs to go back and put some bulk on. He played well. He has a breakthrough season for Cardiff. But I said to you a number of times, Gavin, in Six Nations, he's too lightweight. This kid.
I think Gatland addressed it as well, didn't he? In saying that he's had a couple of niggles in managing workload and stuff. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him bulk up. There's something there in Alex Mann. There's something there to work with. Work rate is phenomenal. Again, this is the mad thing, Gavin. You're right. Thomas Francis came into a settled side and he looked around a dressing room and saw Dan Biggar, Alan Wynne-Jones, Sam Warburton, Jamie Roberts. It goes Lee Halfpenny. It goes on and on and on. And guys like Alex Mann are coming in and seeing guys who he played with in the 20s. He's looking around and seeing Cam Winnett and Mackenzie Martin, his mates. And that is an indicator of where we are. I think a lot of these kids have got mega potential, but it's going to be hard. It's going to be a real slog to get through. Just on the back row point, though, I wouldn't be surprised to see Plumtree feature quite heavily. If you're picking the best three players, you pick Reffel and Morgan and Wainwright, and it's a little bit like the Tipperick Warburton scenario all over again. I think if you want a more balanced back row, you probably look at someone like Plumtree.
I like a proper six. Yeah,
I do, but I just love Tommy Reffel, and the thought of leaving him out feels mad. But
I like a proper six. I want six to be a bit gnarlier, a bit nastier.
Yeah, and a proper line out jumper as well. Yeah, which Plumtree can do.
Yeah, and Plumtree's other benefit is he can play a second row as well.
He could certainly fill in there, couldn't he?
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to choose him in the second row, and it goes against my whole view of saying that I don't like second rows playing in the back row, but oh God, looking at those second row options, it just feels light.
Yeah, so we're going to move on soon, but just quickly, Jed, does this squad, the captain and name, fill you with confidence that we can get anything out of South Africa and Australia?
I think South Africa, we're notoriously slow starters. It's at Twickenham, which doesn't matter who you're playing. It doesn't help. It's at Twickenham, and it's going to be a scratch side. I know South Africa's will be to a certain degree, but when we cobble together a kind of a second choice, or you don't have your first choice players available, I think that's going to be really difficult out. And it's just power, isn't it? They've got power, we haven't. So I can see that being a tough day out. Australia is interesting. I really hope the most important thing for me is that they go there with a sense of belief, a bit like the World Cup. And I know there was more experience there. You had Anscombe and Biggar and players like that in the mix, who have won stuff. But I just really want us to go there and play a bit. And I think having Morgan and Lake back really helps the dressing room. I think there's a sense of belief around Morgan. And suddenly you start to look at the spine of that pack. in terms of, I think in terms of personality as much as anything else. Dav Jenkins is the real deal, right? He's the real deal. He's going to be an excellent 100 capper, provided nothing goes wrong injury wise. Jack Morgan is the real deal, and we saw it in the World Cup. And then you've got, whether Lake is on the bench or starts, there's something about him as a carrier and I think as an individual that just gives, I think will give us a bit more. And obviously that wasn't there. You just had Jenkins during the Six Nations. So look, it's a really puzzling squad. I just hope that what we need is you need some of these younger players to really take a big step forward, like Morgan did during the World Cup, and suddenly he went, "Oh, this guy's a good good international player who might have a bright future ahead of him." To going, "Oh no, when he's on his on his top game, he is real top class international," and we're going to need to see a number of players do that in order to kick on.
Yeah. Okay, Gav, what do you think? Quick thoughts on that squad and how we're going to do against South Africa and Australia. Are you hopeful at all?
No, not really. I'm going to the South Africa game. I'm not going with any great sense. Yeah. I'm not going with any great sense of joy or anything. I'd be interested to see some of those players in the flesh. But I bumped on the way to work yesterday. I bumped into a South African friend of mine. And he said, we'll put a scratch team out, and then chuckled to himself and said, "But not a scratch is yours." And I think that captures it all.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how Australia are going to do under Joe Schmitzy, because I really rate him highly as a coach, and they are not going to be the shit show shambles that they were under Eddie Jones. I can tell you that right now. I think they're going to make some real strides.
And they've got some ball players. When you look at Super Rugby now, there is again they're in a transitional stage as well, but they've got, I agree. I completely rate Joe Schmidt, and that's going to be, it's going to be a hell of a tough task. But yeah, there's going to be more to come from Australia in coming years.
Absolutely. Right then, let's move on. It's time to look inside our mailbox and see what our listeners have been saying. So I asked our lovely listeners to send in their thoughts, questions, and comments, and we'll go through them and answer them. Let's start off then with the Rodney Raw fan account on X. He or she, I don't know, could be a she, says, "Please, we are in private hands and things appear to be stable off the field, but on-field performances are still dire. No improvements have been made, have to be better next season as we are running out of excuses. Enjoyed the pod, keep up the good work." I mean, as Dragons fans, we always used to say we got the lowest playing budget. The problem is now, we can't say that anymore because all regions are on the same playing budget. So I can see what they're saying about, excuses. I mean, we're always going to be behind the rest in the URC, with budgets. It's not a fair league really in terms of, it's not even playing field, but we are kind of running out of excuses not to kick on a little bit, aren't we, Jed? Do you think?
Yeah, I do. I mean, and again, this is not a new thing, is it? I'm struggling to think of the last season off the top of my head that you'd look at and say, well, that was positive. It's really, really tough. And during the last 10 years, you've had coaches of all different shapes and sizes. You've had old school Lynn Jones and Dean Ryan. You've got someone like Flanagan. You had the left field appointment of someone like Jackman. All of these things, we've tried all different things, and nothing has really led to any meaningful progress. So it just has to happen next year. It has to happen. And I don't know. I think now it's in private ownership. I think that is definitely an encouraging sign. I think that's a kind of a really reassuring thing, because I know it's been a little while in the offing, and it gives you that bit more security. You've got to get wins, and you've got to get wins early doors next season. It's just been really substandard this season, and I don't know, I don't know what excuses there are, because you shouldn't be struggling against the Zebras of this world. They're not flush with cash, are they? So it's just got to be better next season.
Yeah, and I would agree. It needs to be better. I'm not being realistic. I don't think we're going to be challenging the Munsters and the Leinsters.
No.
But we need to be at least punching our weight, because we're not even doing that at the moment.
Yep, fair enough. Nathan Dark gets in touch. He says, "The best signing we've made is Tia for his stature and experience as head coach. He says, no way will his remit be confined to defence. Having offloaded at least 3 coaching staff, why not assign him to a more encompassing role? And he says, do you feel he'll be in line for such a role if results don't improve? So I think what Nathan's trying to say there, if results don't improve and Dye gets the chop, can you see a situation where Tia becomes head coach, given the fact that, you know, he's had head coach experience? Well, what do you make of that, Gav?
Is that part of the thinking? I would say probably not. If that did transpire and the board felt that, you know, changes were needed, it would have the least tumult, for want of a better phrase. You know, it would be a bit more seamless. So yeah, that would make sense. He's been fine as a head coach. He's not really pulled up too many trees. So I think we need to limit expectations a little, but
yeah. The thing is, though, I think what people forget is Dyer's had a really difficult start to the Dragons because he came to the Dragons. What happened? Dean Ryan got sacked, so he lost his director of rugby. Yeah, then he lost his head of recruitment. Rob Burgess left. Then he lost his defence coach, Simon Cross, who went to America. So it hasn't been easy for him.
No,
you know, we got to bear that in mind. And he is a young, inexperienced coach. He's learning on the job. And I think having Tia there alongside him, that's why I think he's been brought in. And I do agree, because I said to you before, he's not just there to coach defence. And I don't know what you think, Jed, as well. I think he's been there to assist Dye, to help him, to support him, to advise him. I think he's going to have a big say in what happens in that dressing room and the operations behind the scenes. I don't think he's purely there just to coach defence. What do you think?
No, I don't think so. Like you say, he's got head coach experience. I don't think it's necessarily just grooming, you know, him in case things go wrong with Dye. I think, you know, no, I don't know this, but I get the feeling that the management want Dye to succeed. You know, I don't think they're eyeing up at their eyeing. I think they want to give him every chance to do so, because, you know, again, he's a highly rated coach when he came in, but it's a big step to go to head coach. And particularly when you haven't got a director of rugby around there. I think Tia brings that experience. He knows what he's getting himself into, and he will bring that command of a dressing room and that the miles under the belt of doing the head coach thing. So whether it's in a formal role or not, he's going to be doing more than just coaching the defence, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Owen Leclerc says the new signings look promising. Most important one would be the Australian lock, if he can help with our scrum. You saw about Steve Cummins, the former Scarlet, who we've signed from Poe. Our hip can solidify our scrum too. Yep, we saw that on the weekend. Can he play more than 20, 30 minutes? No, we answered that already. Other signings look exciting, but doesn't matter without the scrum. Successful season next year is to finish above 15th, probably above the Welsh team, and we have to get into the next round of Europe. Well, the knockout stages, I think he means. Yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. Now, we've had a couple of questions about this, and it's something that I've been quite unhappy with this season. Something I've talked about a lot on this pod. The Dragons attack. So, Nick Foyle says, do we need a new attack coach? And Ellis Perry has asked, are we going to have the same guy overseeing our attack next season? Okay. Now, just for context, before you guys answer this, we are ranked 16th in the league for attack. So we've got the worst attack in the URC statistically, okay? We've scored the least amount of points. We've scored the least amount of tries. We made the fewest offloads in the league. And we are ranked last for meters gained. Now, Matt O'Brien is responsible for our attack, the Newport RFC fly half. So those are really damning stats. I'm not putting all the blame on one guy, but clearly there's work to be done there, isn't it? So how have you guys felt about watching our attack this season? Because there are question marks now from fans about bringing in a new attack coach. And Matt O'Brien is a young and experienced coach as well. He's learning on the job. He has got a good reputation with the work he's done with the Dragons Academy. But we've got to see improvement, haven't we, next season? Because watching us in attack is, I think, quite painful, actually. It makes me want to punch walls. I'm not kidding either, it does.
I don't know what our attacking strategy is, and that's my problem. if you see a team like Cardiff, I'm being far too positive about Cardiff. This does feel
I don't like it.
But if you look at a team like Cardiff, they're not winning games, but you know what they're trying to do in attack.
They have structure, don't they?
Yeah, I don't know what we're trying to do in attack, and I think part of that is to do with decision making. Take a drink if you're playing the drinking game, but yeah, it is around decision making and around leadership in at the backs. But a structure is a structure. I play and coach at a very, very low level of English rugby, but I could tell you what our attacking structure is, and you would be able to see it on the field. Admittedly very slowly. But you don't see that with Dragons. I'm not quite sure what it is.
What about you then, Jed? When you watched the Dragons and attack, you talked about earlier, didn't you, that we're not really clinical and it's the accuracy part of it. But what frustrates you about our attack?
Yeah, I think Gav's hit the nail on the head there. It's unclear. There doesn't seem to be a huge amount of direction. But again, it's been like that as long as I can remember. I just don't know. I don't know if changing the attack coach is the right thing. It's hard to do anything when you're constantly getting beaten up front, and we have done for a long time. I think the thing that's kept us in games, as you said, is we've got a good driving line out, and that keeps you in games. Outside of that, it becomes very difficult to try and to try and build a cohesive attack. I mean, it's been painful to watch. You're right, and I don't know whether it's down to coaching, personnel, the fact that you're getting done over up front all the time. But I mean, generally speaking, we look at our best when it's a bit of broken field and Rio happens to get the ball in his hands, and you just think, right, well, you've got a player here who can do stuff and can score out of nothing, which again is not a brilliant position to be in when you're just relying on bits and bobs and scraps.
Yeah, and Rio's not a miracle worker, is he?
No.
He can't do everything.
No, I said to his mum on the train going down Judgement, I said, the problem is we don't give the ball enough to Rio.
No, we don't.
We don't see enough of the ball, and that's a real shame.
But
also, as well, players got to take responsibility. It's very easy to blame the coaches, and I get it. That's their remit. That's where they're responsible. Like I said, Matt O'Brien is responsible for attack, so he's got to take responsibility. But also, players need to own up as well. They got to take responsibility. The amount of times they cough up the ball, forward passes, errors. It's got to be down to personnel as well as just coaching. What was you going to say then, Gav?
I was just going to say, I totally agree with both of you. We can talk about attacking structure, we can talk about attacking coaches, but if you don't have the pill, you can't do anything anyway. Yeah, and that's the problem.
No, okay. Gareth Clay says, are any of our new signings improvement on the players that we've lost? And he says he'd take 14th place next season, as that would show improvement. Well, I suppose it would be one better.
But I read Gareth's comments, so he's not talking about players we lost this season. He's talking about Moriarty, about Rowlands, isn't he? If I remember that. About Sam Davis, about JJ Hanrahan. Wasn't that his comment?
Oh, he's just talked about all the players that we've lost. Yeah, I mean, by focusing on this season now, because last season is down. Talking about this season now, with the players that we've lost, let's focus on that.
Yeah.
Are these new signings an improvement over what we got?
On the whole, I think so. I think Shane Lewis is an upgrade on Sean Lonsdale. Sorry, Sean, I keep saying things. I think Cummins brings in what we want. I think Wilson is the kind of player we've been looking for. The back rower's name, I've completely forgotten, the Tongan guy.
Solomon Funaki.
Yeah, Funaki. He's, so I think they're upgrades.
Yeah, I definitely think Harry Wilson would be an upgrade over someone like Max Clark, for example.
Yeah, Max Clark just didn't work, did it?
No, not at all.
He played a lot of, it came with a good reputation, particularly from age grade level. I remember when there was, the potential tug of war over him when he was playing under 20s for England, one of the originals doing that. But that just didn't work. So I think you'd have to look at that as being an upgrade. it's so difficult until you see him in action, isn't it? I think there's a lot of punts. There's a lot of punts in there, really. You know, they're not players who featured massively heavily, but that's where we're at. We haven't got much money, so you need to be clever with it. And you know, like we said, if someone like Hollis turns out to be a steal and worth a permanent contract, a player who's been kind of cast aside, that's where we're at. We need to go fishing in that pool. That's what we're after. Is like kind of hidden gems, really, and potentially Wilson falls into that bracket as well. And Cummins in the second round. I liked Lonsdale. I don't know if I'm alone in this, but I thought he put in.
No,
a
I
big
did.
shift. Yeah.
Gavin's not a big fan of Lonsdale, but I didn't mind him.
It's not
He was
that I'm a big
reliable.
fan. I'm just, he's fine.
I just thought he was grunt, and and that's it. I was like, I'm more than happy with that. But I think there's I think Carter and Screech have ended the season pretty well. So you bring Cummins into the mix there. Look, it's tight head is the big concern, isn't it? When we're saying the best, the best option that we've got is getting our hip on a permanent deal when we know he's only got limited minutes in him every game. So, but they're top quality tight heads and do not come cheap and are not available in June and July of a season, are they?
No. Tight head and 10 are the places we really need to improve for me.
No, I agree. Shane Lewis-Hughes, though, I'm really pleased about that. I've been a fan of him for a long time. And since he's come back from injury, he's been excellent for Cardiff. I thought he was brilliant in South Africa. I thought he was really good at Judgement Day as well. I know Cardiff have played him a lock. It's an option for me. It's great that he can play that position if we're short, but for me, he's a six for me. His possession. So hopefully we'll be in the back row for us.
He's a Bosch merchant, which I like. I like that at 6. I want somebody who's going to hit racks and knock players over.
Yeah. Okay, so David Cox gets in touch. He says, we need to finish up at least one Welsh region to shut them all up and quell the call to get rid of us. I mean, yeah, it would be nice if we could start punching above our weight and proving people wrong. I think when Dragons keep on losing like this and we can constantly bottom of the Welsh pile, it does invite those comments of close them down, they're rubbish, don't they? And the only way you change perception is to win games to get better. So I think we could all agree on that, can't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fair enough, isn't it?
And irrespective of the shut them down chat, we need to improve because we have to improve.
Yeah.
We can't keep playing like this. It's not going to do anyone any favours.
No. Andy Hossack gets in touch. He said, is David stepping down but still on the board an indication that we're ultimately going nowhere? The reason we ask is that he's done an outstanding job. He saved us, he moved us forward, but it's still been another poor season. Maybe one too many for him as it would reflect on him and his legacy moving forward. So, no, it's not an indication that we're going nowhere. The reason David has stepped down is because he's taken a chief executive job with over energy and he hasn't got the time to do both roles. That's all it is. And let's not forget, he's still a non-executive director. He's not going far. Still on the Dragons board. He's still very much part of the Dragons. And David's did a brilliant job. Friend of the pod, David Buttress, of course. He's still going to have a big say in what's going on, but maybe it's a good idea to have fresh blood at the top now. David, right? He's a seems quite a knowledgeable guy. I mean, he was a former rugby player. He's a very intelligent and rich businessman. So maybe it is time for a change. But no, it's not an indication that we're going nowhere. I think it was pretty obvious, wasn't it? Once David got that chief executive job at OVO, that he was going to stand down. That just seemed the obvious choice. I'm not concerned
it
about
makes
that.
sense. I imagine they're paying him quite a lot of money. They'll need him to earn it.
Yeah. He also goes on to say, we've renewed our season ticket again. Good man. But that Scarlets match was so poor to watch with the same errors again and again, as discussed on your pod. Is losing now the acceptable result as training doesn't seem to get rid of the errors? Well, we've talked about this, haven't we? We don't have the answers, but we've talked about it. His final comment, he says, for a Toby Booth for what he's got going at the Ospreys. I mean, yes, I am insanely jealous of the Ospreys, and I'm a big admirer of Toby Booth. But they are further down the line in their development than we are, aren't they?
Let's not forget that they were tossed when he took over, and fair play to the job he's done there. They were, and they've fallen a long way. Not just, I don't mean from the Galactico era, because we all know that the money wasn't there, but afterwards, I know Tandy got a lot of stick, but I felt at that point he did actually a pretty reasonable job of transitioning from that post Galactico era, and then to look, however many years 4 or 5 seasons down the line, they were really, really poor when Booth took over. So, things can change. There's not going to be a huge amount of money to do it. And I'd love to have someone like Toby Booth to come in and do it. But I don't know, maybe the new injection of coaches is gonna just at least put us on that right track next season.
Yeah, this hasn't come out of nowhere. Toby Booth has been building a squad. He did a very smart coaching acquisition to pick up Mark Jones.
Yeah, he did.
Very smart. Yeah. That's the kind of thing that we needed to do when we were looking for a defence coach, But Simon Cross went, we were too slow, but then we probably would have had the funds anyway, would we? So, no, fair play to the Ospreys. They are clearly the best Welsh region. And, we're a little bit further behind, I think, than the Ospreys. But, yeah, they're doing a great job, and good luck to them. Right, so a question from David Gallivan. Another season where we have underperformed on the pitch. Now, this is all cheery, mind, isn't it? This is cheery. Our squad, okay, so I'm going to have to push back on this one. He says, our squad is comparable to the other Welsh teams. So what has Toby Booth and Matt Sherritt been able to achieve that our coaching team hasn't? Now, I'm going to push back on that. I don't think our squad is comparable to the Ospreys. Ospreys have got a much better squad than ours.
Or Cardiff, I don't think.
Yeah, so, David, I'm going to have to disagree with you there. Our squad is not comparable. I think we've got the weakest squad out of the 4 regions. Yes, we got good players. We got a lot of talent. But you can't say to me that our squad is on the par with the Ospreys, because if it was, we'd be challenging for the playoffs as well. But we're not. But Ospreys are the best team. And I think coaching is a big part of it. So what about Cardiff then? Because Cardiff actually won the same amount of games all season as the Dragons. Yes, the caveat to that was they were playing in Champions Cup. But nonetheless, they've won the same amount of games as us. But they're higher up the table than us. I don't think there's that much of a gulf. But clearly they've got the best players. And they have got 9 players in the Wales squad, which I know boiled a lot of piss of Ospreys fans, because they were thinking that they were going to dominate the Wales squad. And maybe they should have, but it's Cardiff that got 9. Now, make of that what you will, whether you think that's right or I don't know. But how do you feel about that then, Jed, about our squad compared to? Do you think David's right, or do you think we're
I agree with you. I think we have got the weakest squad. I don't think it's so weak that we should be accepting the level of results and performances based on this season. I think there's more out of this, because there is proper quality in there. We don't need to name them. The quality players that are in there. But I just think to go, if you look at the Ospreys, particularly in those key positions this season, they've had Nicky Smith and Gareth Thomas in the loose head, tight heads of Tom Bota and Rhys Henry. And then you've got Parry and Lake and the other young hook. I can't remember who's done a good shit. And they got Fender in the second row, and he's been missing chunks of the season. Sutton, Ratty. There's just a lot of strength there, but a lot of that comes down to the fact that Booth has got them playing. Is playing at the absolute top of their game. They're not. None of those players have. Again, you probably wouldn't look at Rhys Henry on paper and go, "Oh, right, here's this guy's going to be a world beater," but he's so effective for them. I think he's a great player.
I'd have him at the Dragons because he can scrum.
I'd love him at the Dragons.
Yeah.
I think he's excellent.
Yeah, you look at him and you think, he should be playing for Dunvant or Tumble or someone rather than Ospreys. But my God, he can play. That boy can play.
I'd have him at the Dragons, obviously. I don't think he'll ever play for Wales because of how he looks. And in some ways, that's a shame. But he can scrummage, no doubt about that. What about the Scarlets then? Do you think we got a better squad than the Scarlets? Or do you think we're on the par with them? Or would you say we got...
I think they're marginally stronger than us. I would say marginally stronger. There are a couple of positions where I would say, I'm not sure with us. Whereas with Scarlets, I do think they have more or less quality in most positions.
It's marginal this time around, though. I think. Whereas again, in the past, obviously they've had more money in the past, but they've had much stronger squads. And this time around, again, it feels very cobbled together, the Scarlets squad at the moment. And I think recruitment for next season looks a bit like that. Not that the Dragons is necessarily a million miles away from that, but I don't know. I just think they're again, like us, they're a side that's struggling for identity. We know what what the traditional Scarlets' identity is. I don't think they've played to it this season. If I'm honest, I think they've been trying to play a bit more conservative to keep them in games, and it hasn't worked out for them either. So, yeah, there's a hell of a lot of work to be done there.
Yeah, like I said, worst Scarlets team in years, and yet they finished 11 points above us. So this sums it up, really, doesn't it? So I think we can agree then that we're not, our squad isn't comparable to the other regions. However, we still should have done better. That's what we're saying, aren't we? We still shouldn't have been as poor as we've been. Okay, that's fair enough. Then. Next question comes from Ali. Do you like this one, Gav? Because I know how much you like this guy. This is a player that always gets talked about on our pod, and he's not even a Dragons player, right? Should the Dragons, this is what Alice is asking, should the Dragons look at signing Rhys Patchell? Or is he too old and too injury prone to make an impact? Well, firstly, he's not too old because he's only 31, so I don't class that as old. Gav, should we sign Rhys Patchell?
But you know my views. I love Patch.
I know, that's why it comes to you.
Not quite to the degree that Rhiannon does, but I love Patch. I think he's a great player. He does all the things I want a modern outside half to do. He can tackle, he can kick, and he brings other players into play. I would literally sell my children to get him to the club. Not literally, if anyone's listening.
Jed, what are your thoughts on Rhys Patchell as a player?
I honestly think like his injury luck in the last 4 or 5 years has been Wales would be in a completely different position if he was fit. I think he's such a class act, and was really looking that World Cup 2019. I even thought the little cameos he made in that god awful Six Nations the season before last. Coming off the bench against Scotland, I thought, you can see that there's still that quality there, but it's all down to fitness. You've seen some brilliant glimpses of it playing for the Highlanders. Look, if there was a chance to get him for the Dragons, God, I would absolutely love to see him there. I'd love to see him playing for the Dragons. I think he'd be such a good recruit, but it's no use signing him if he's going to be injured all the time. It all hinges on fitness, because when he's fully fit and firing, he's an absolute. He's an international 10 for me.
I guess that's the issue, isn't it? It is the injury record, because I could think, we all know what a brilliant player he is, but it's taking a gamble, and the Jaguars have done that a lot when they gambled on injury-prone players. But we almost signed him, actually. We did have talks with him. We also had talks with Gareth Anscombe, but they rejected us, so it's fair enough. But if there is an opportunity, who knows? But Ali did go on to say another fly-off is needed for next season. Surely Will Reid can't do another 20 games, poor lad. I mean, in an ideal world, you wouldn't be giving a young fly-off that many games. I don't think the Dragons intended to. But because of the injuries to Angus, who I think we've missed a lot this season.
Massive miss.
We've had to, he has had to shoulder a lot of responsibility at 10. And, me and Gav have spoken about Will Reid a lot in this pod. We think he's a very talented player, but he's got a hell of a lot to work on in terms of game management and reducing his error count. His kicking can be a little bit off target sometimes as well. But he's a talented lad. But yeah, we shouldn't be giving him another 20 odd games. I don't think that's the right way to manage him. But a fly-off is a priority. Do you know what I was thinking about, though, for a fly-off? I don't actually rate this person at all, but it did come to my mind. So if we're thinking of signing a fly-half who is cheap, available, and experienced, you could sign Dan Jones, who's been released from the Scarlets. And Dave Flanagan has worked with him. He'll know him. What would you think of that as a suggestion? I mean, it doesn't fill you with excitement, I know, but if we were desperate and we're low on funds, signing someone like Dan Jones?
I get it, but...
Gavin's face. That's a no-then, is it?
I get it, but okay. No, it's painfully uninspiring, isn't it?
He's made over 150 appearances for the Scarlets, man. He's very experienced.
Yeah,
doesn't mean he's good.
His best rugby was quite a few years ago, though. I think he's been, been pretty bit part in the last couple of seasons. Yeah, it wouldn't be one that would fill me with confidence. Look, you mentioned it. Look, I think Angus being fit would make a big difference.
Yeah,
I still think his best position is 15 though, to be honest. But we've been here before having a fly half play way too many. Sam Davis for about 2 seasons played every minute of every game, and it put too much strain on him. And I think that was that wasn't ideal. And then he came back into a side when you had at the time when Hanrahan and Reed was bursting through and Hanrahan signed and then couldn't get enough rugby. So yeah, I don't know. There's got to be someone. Someone's got to fill that gap and take the burden off Reed because he's still learning. He's learning his trade. But yeah, the coffers are pretty bare, aren't they? So I think look, it's probably not going to be a million miles away from Dan Jones, to be honest.
No. And how well has Sam Davis done in Pro D2 with Oval? Didn't play this season, haven't he? I've always rated Sam Davis. Gav thinks differently, but good on him, I say.
Well, I think he's done well at Grenoble, but then he's behind a decent pack.
It does help, doesn't it? Yeah.
And I say this as a forward. It's easy to be a 9 or a 10 if your pack's dominant, because it's hard to be a 10 if everything you're getting is a bit scrabbled and, either slow or just flung away. And with us, Sam Davis wasn't getting quality ball. I have issues about his decision making anyway, but I think he probably did struggle with us because he wasn't getting the quality of ball he is now with Grenoble.
No, fair enough. This question is from John, a player we've spoken about a lot in this pod as well, Gav. He's talking about Leon Brown. Why are we giving Leon Brown another deal? He never plays. He's always injured. Should we not just look to get rid? Jed, Leon Brown, would you sign him to a new deal? Is he worth it now?
I would take a punt on him, depending on the financials. But again, it feels like a punt. What I would say is, if you look, because basically you're kind of clinging on to the hope that Leon's going to be the player that we all hoped that he would be at the start of his career. He's a brilliant athlete. He's not old by any stretch. So I still think there's more to come from him if he can stay fit. Because if you look at, like when we signed Rodri Jones, we referred to it on our pods. It was like signing a concept. You weren't signing a prop forward. You were signing this kind of idea that someone had and I think he's done it. I think he's put in a really good shift this season. I think he's put in a really good shift and made a difference. So it's not too late to turn things around. And what are the other options? Look, if you've unearthed some gem in Stellenbosch who is not going to cost you the earth and has just been released by a South African Currie Cup side, fine, great, bring him in. But do we have those options right now? There's something about Leon that I think if he was to stay fit is there is more to come. But fitness is the issue for me. But I know a lot of the fan base think differently.
No, there's a lot of negative comments on the Dragons forums and the Facebook pages about Leon, and it's not his fault. It's not his fault. He's just had better luck with injury. A lot of fans just want him gone because he never. I understand the frustration, but like I said, I do feel sorry for him because I think he's got such potential, but we just haven't seen it.
I see both sides of the argument. I see both sides of the argument. He's not played enough rugby for us, and he's expensive. But there is potential there. There's a physicality there. He's just not become the player I imagined he would be. When he first played for Wales, I thought, this is quality. I've never really seen Rhys Carre. I never saw Rhys Carre as a particularly good player. But I thought Leon Brown had the potential to be a real kind of an all-court player as a prop. But his scrummaging didn't really develop, and then he just kept getting injured.
Yeah, I think for me, it needs to depend on the terms. I would have to say to Leon, look, Leon, you've had wretched luck with injury, and it's been tough. I get that, but we're going to have to offer you less than what you had before. It'll have to be reduced terms.
Yeah, pay as you play.
It'd have to be right. People mention pay as you play. I mean, I don't know in the modern age of how it really works, but I would say to Leon that we want you to stay, but this is what we think you're worth now with the injuries and, explain about the budget cuts. I'm sorry, but this is what we can offer you. Take it or leave it, because there's no one else queuing up for his signature. I know he had talks at Bristol, but that's cooled off now. So I just make an ultimatum to Leon and say, look, this is all we can afford. This is why, we're prepared to offer you. Take it or leave it. And if he stays, fine. If he goes, that's okay as well, I guess. But it's just a shame. It's like I said, I think he's got so much potential and talent, but we've just never seen it. It's a real shame. Right, last question then, and that'll be it then for the mailbag. Matthew Williams. What would be considered a success next season? He says, we say this every year, but surely next season has to be better. Yes, we say it every single season. Jed, what would you consider a successful season for the Dragons next season? What does that look like to you?
For me, at the risk of sounding like Steve Hansen, it's more about the performances than it is necessarily, whether we finish 14th or 15th or whatever it is. Because I think you've just got to be building. Like I say, these things don't happen over the night. So we've got to be building towards something. As I say, we seem to be praising Cardiff a lot here. But I think if you were to look at where they were this time last year, particularly with the squad that they had and scrambling around to find, who would have thought that Tinas de Beer would turn out to be the signing that he's been? I would take a season like Cardiff have had, just that step forward in terms of knowing the style of rugby you want to play. In an ideal world, entertaining and running sides close every game. It's the drubbins and like you say, the half times that you go into going, well, that's it. We're out of this game. And that's happened far too often for me away from home. At home, I think it's been different. I think they've been largely competitive at home. So I just want to see it be competitive in 90% of the games. All right, fine. You're going to get done over in Dublin by a Leinster B team, and there's probably the equivalent games in South Africa as well. But 80-90% of the time being competitive, and the rest will fall into place. Whether it's 4 or 5 wins, whatever. I just think I just want to see us be in the game and be hard to beat.
Gav, what does success look like for you next season?
Third best in Wales. I do agree with Jed. I think it's about performances, but I think if we could finish above one of the Welsh teams as a result of those improved performances as well, it shows progress. But the rugby has to look better next season, and there have to be more wins.
Yeah, definitely. For me, let's just stop being the worst in Wales. That's where I would start.
Yeah.
Let's for once not be the worst team, because it happened in Dean Ryan's first season. And let's not forget, in Dean Ryan's first season, Ospreys were the worst team in Wales, but we qualified for the Champions Cup.
Yeah.
So let's try not to be the worst team in Wales. That would be a start. Let's try and lift ourselves, because we're always stuck in the bottom 2 now. For the past 3 seasons, we've become this bottom 2 team. And I want to move us higher up the table. I want to see us make the knockout stages in the Challenge Cup. We blew a fantastic opportunity to do that this season. We beat Oyonnax 5-pointer. We lost to Poe, wasn't it, away in the dying seconds. That should have been closed out. We should have beaten Seabra, a game that I paid £8 for, which still annoys me to this day. I actually paid money to stream that game
I did tell you
off the EPCL website. I know I should have listened. We were winning at half time. We were in control. Second half completely blew it. And then, of course, we lose to Sharks at home because they were fully loaded when they had to bring the Springboks down to Newport, didn't they, when they played us? Well, they ended up winning the trophy, didn't they? So fair play to them. But let's get a good European Cup run, and let's stop being the worst team in Wales. For me, that's where it starts. And let's be competitive. Let's put in an 80-minute performance. Let's not fall away in the last quarter of games like we've done this season. And let's pick up some losing bonus points like Cardiff have done. If you're not going to win, pick up the losing bonus points. They accumulate, you move further up the table. But yeah, that's what success looks like for me anyway. Let's stop being the worst team in Wales. Get out to the bottom 2 and have a decent cup run. Right, I feel like we need to end on a brighter note, because I do feel it's been a little bit too doom and gloom. But those were the questions that our listeners wanted us to, in fairness. Those are the questions and comments. Thank you all for those, by the way. Really enjoyed getting through some of those. So let's end on a brighter note. Who has been your Dragons Player of the Year? Is there any particular person? I mean, the obvious one is Wainwright today. I think he'd be absolutely fantastic. But who else deserves a mention? Jed, who has impressed you in a difficult season for the Dragons?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, Wainwright is in a different league of performances. I think he's been absolutely superb. I think the kind of unsung heroes, like we said, Rodri Jones and Martinez and are here, but have started to make a difference. Have started to make a difference in the mix there. The one that really excites me is the one that we mentioned at the start of the show, and that's Westwood. And I know it's been like kind of fleeting, fleeting at points. Again, Rossa the younger, I like. There's as I say, it's often the same story with us, isn't it? Is there's young bright talent. But yeah, I mean, no one's in the same league as Wainwright in terms of his consistency and his excellent. And he looks like he can take on sides on his own, and he'll give it every chance. And and Rio would be the other. He's always exciting to watch, and that helps.
What about you then, Gav? Who's impressed you? Who stood out for the Dragons?
Well, Wayno's been the best player by country miles, not a country mile, hundreds of country miles. But for me, it's been the Rossa boys, both of them, both Jared and Ewan Jared and Ewan have been kind of bright sparks for me. And I just love Jared Ross's headless chicken style of play. It's just absolutely anathema to what modern wing play looks like, and I love it. And I think Ewan has been particularly strong when we've put him at fullback. He's looked solid there.
Jared Rossa would have scored one of the tries this season against the Sharks if he had just dabbed the ball down properly.
That was possibly one of the best tries I had ever seen, and when it was disallowed, I was cursing everything. But I just like how frenetic he is.
And the skinhead suits him, I think.
Yeah, and a couple of the interception scores he's tried, it's not because he's defensively positioned. I just think he's just the passes are going and he just happens to be there. I don't think there's any actual fault about it.
Yeah,
and I just like the idea. He plays with a freedom that I enjoy.
No, I agree with both of you. Wainwright has been out of this world. I'm really excited about the young talent we got at the club. Harry Ackerman and Joe Westwood, what a future centre partnership that's going to be. We got some really good young talent. Jordan Morris is one to look out for as well.
I like Shea Hope as well.
He's had a fantastic season for Newport. He played well off the bench. And Judgement Day, he come off, he gave a bit more zip, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, he gives a bit of zing. I also like Ryan Woodman as well.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Yeah, Ryan Woodman. Yeah. When you go through our young talent, you hear the other regions hype up their youngsters, but we got bloody good talent in Gwent as well.
I also
recognise that.
I like Luke Yendall as well. I'm not convinced he's top level, but he's a trier and he's put in a couple of good performances.
The positive thing to end on for me, right, is the fact that it's been another hard decade of rugby, right? But Gwent consistently produces talent, right? And that team is still packed full of local lads that on the whole go out and put in a big shift. So I just want to see us move forward, and move in the right direction because we've always produced have always produced good quality young talent and that's still going on now. So yeah, just let's just hope it's a big step in the right direction next year.
Gav, are you optimistic for the future? You optimistic?
No, but I'm not pessimistic either. I'm just trying to be realistic now. I'm trying to be pragmatic. I think recruitment looks better, and it will have an impact. So ish.
The key thing for me is ownership, and getting us into private ownership was so crucial and so important for the Dragons. Because now we can control our own destiny. And we have got 3 very committed, and I've met them all in person, apart from Ho Young Hugh, who's based in Miami, but I've met David Wright and I've met David Buttress. David Buttress, of course, we had on our podcast. They are desperate to turn things around. I can tell you they care, and they are investing, and they're determined to turn it around, and we got to give them an opportunity. And I know we've heard this all before at the Dragons. There's been so many false dawns, isn't there? We all know that as long-suffering Dragons fans, but off the field, we're looking very stable. We've brought in Rhys Brumby, which I think is a very good appointment as CEO. We're bringing Ryan Chambers for the performance side of it as well. So I'm optimistic. And as far as I'm concerned now, in the words of D-Ream, things can only get better. The only way is up, boys, isn't it? Now, we've got to be positive about it. We can't sink really any lower. So, and that's going to be the title of this podcast, actually. Things can only get better. So, yeah, let's end on a positive.
So you got your exit music as well, Jamie.
Can only get better. Do you know, you heard on the radio, right, that they were at Glastonbury TV. They said they're playing a greatest hit set. And they thought, greatest hits?
It's 4.5 minutes long.
I've seen them. I've seen them live. They played the University Bowl in 1994, right. Maybe 1995.
What other hits have they done? Because I cannot think off the top of my head another hit they had. What did they do, Gav?
No, I've got no idea.
So you can't even say it. You see them live.
Yeah, but bear in mind it was 30 years ago, and I had taken alcohol that day. Certainly, it's.
In a similar vein, I saw Chesney Hawkes 20 years ago in Southampton doing jumping jacks in Southampton. He did 6 songs, 3 of which were "I Am the One and Only." He opened with it, he closed with it. He did an acoustic cover of it, and then there was a B-side, the B-side to "I'm the One and Only," something else like his new song, and a cover of John Lennon's "Imagine." So that was a harrowing night.
Jed, if you were going to jumping jacks in Southampton about 20 years ago, I imagine you and I's paths have probably crossed, because I lived in Hampshire around that time.
Did you?
And maybe slightly before. No, around that time. Yeah, and had gone to jumping jacks and the delights of Ocean Village.
Oh dear me! Bands who perform the same song twice, though, that shouldn't be allowed, and I hope it doesn't happen now, because apparently in the 80s, when Europe struck it big with Final Countdown, because I read this in Classic Rock magazine, they used to open with the Final Countdown and close with it. That was their encore and their opener, and you'd be like, "Nah, no way, that do my nut in."
I saw Budgie in
great band.
Yeah, Gwent boys. But I saw them down here in East Sussex, and they play Bread Fan 3 times. But
oh Jesus, it's a great song, but come on, come on. Right, that went off topic, didn't it? Right, I think we'll wrap it up there. It's been a busy pod. Jed, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Like I said, this has been a therapy session for us, isn't it? It feels good to share the pain, because it's always me and Gav. So where can listeners find you on your podcast if they want to know more about the Attacking Scrum?
Yeah, so Attacking Scrum, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the usual places. The only socials I tend to use these days is Twitter, or what was. So you can find us there at Attacking Scrum. And yeah, having a bit of a refresh now, just kind of like refreshing the format a bit. We've been going, so next season will be our 9th season. So it's been a long old a long old slog. But yeah, looking forward to having a bit of a freshen up and coming back in the new season. And just a bit of a shot in the arm. And actually, I was going to say, it's great to see you boys on the scene. Has this been your first full season?
Yes.
Yeah.
Of the Dragons Day, yeah.
Yeah. And
Jamie's done rap for a number of years, but yeah, this is our first.
Yeah, but I mean, it's good. It's good to see, and it's the kind of the democratic nature of kind of fan media, isn't it? You can get together and have a chat and give you don't need a big expensive studio to do all these things. So yeah, it's just good to see people giving their time to Welsh rugby, and yeah, we'll be back to do the same again next season.
I mean, I would like to record this in a big fancy studio. I'm not going to lie, that would be quite nice. But
if this was my full-time job, I'd be all right with it. Like if I don't think anyone's paying us for podcasting though.
It's mad, Jed. It's going to be the 9th season, because I can remember listening to Attackers from very first episode.
I remember you tweeting. I remember you tweeting and saying, because you must have been one of our first followers, and said, "When does this come out?" And yeah, it was a long time ago, and it's changed a bit since then. And I seem to think I think I'm the only person still going from day one, but yeah, we'll go again, and it's that's why we keep coming back, isn't it? It's because we love rugby, and And yeah, that's I don't know. You just hope that there are brighter times around the corner for Wales and the Dragons, and it'll be a lot easier to do.
Absolutely. And you was running the very first Welsh podcast, like Welsh rugby podcast. I can imagine there was no one else doing what you were doing. Now they're bloody everywhere, didn't they, Gav? All these podcasts, Rap, Dragons, Cardiff Central, and God knows
no, it's good.
Scrum 5.
it's really good to see. Yeah, it was I think when we started, it was Scrum 5, and on and off you had the Wales Online doing bits and pieces. But it was never consistent in those days. So, it's good. The more voices there are around Welsh rugby, particularly from a fan perspective, that's an important thing. I think whether you're sticking the boot into the union or just having a chat about your favourite players, it's the things we love about the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us, as I said, Jed, and best of luck, and hope the Attacking Scrum pod continues to grow. Gav, thank you as always. It's been a pleasure doing this pod, and thank you to our listeners. And I want to thank all our guests. Now, I'm going to write a list and put this up on Twitter because I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. This is our first season, and we had some amazing guests on this pod. We've had David Buttress, who, to be fair, didn't have to come on the pod, but he came on after that Cardiff game where we got absolutely slaughtered. And fair play, he fronted up, didn't he, Gav?
He did,
and he answered some really difficult questions from our listeners, one or two from me as well. Fair play to him. He fronted up. That was our highest rated episode. Our listening figures are through the roof for that one. We've had Colin Jarvis on the pod, Reinhard Landman, Adam Hughes. We've had brilliant players on here.
Brock Harris.
Brock Harris. We've had the legend, Brock Harris. Yeah, I know. And the thing is, people say, how do you get these guests on your pod? I say, well, I ask them, and if they say yeah, fine. If they say no, that's fine as well. But I'm amazed when they actually say yes. Like when Brock said, I'll do it, I was like, shit, And then I interviewed him. He was in his hotel in Phil Stormer's kit. He just done his captain's run, everything. It's a brilliant interview for the listener back. I tell you what, Jen, what a lovely guy Brock is. Honest to God, he's one of the nicest people I've ever met. He's a really good bloke. And I miss him terribly. I don't know about you boys. I'd have him back at the track and tomorrow. He's 39 years old. He can scrummage both sides, and he's doing so well for the Stormers, isn't he?
I often put together this. Sorry, Jay, I know you're trying to wrap up, but I often put together it's like fantasy 15 in my head of players who've left the Dragons and gone on and been miles better elsewhere. Not miles better, but have gone on and achieved stuff elsewhere. And it's like, it's just, there's so many of them, and Brock would be another one. It's just like, God, how did we let him go?
But if anyone deserves success, it is Brock. So I'm pleased for him. He's a lovely guy. So, let's end it there then. And like I said, thank you to our listeners. We'll be back next season where hopefully we'll be talking about a few more wins. Because as much as I've enjoyed this, we've had a good laugh, and it has been a little bit tough on times, isn't it? Having to talk about defeats every week and the same errors being made week in, week out. Let's hope now with the recruitment and the coaches coming in that things are going to get better. We can only hope. Without hope, there is nothing. A very famous person said that one. So, let's be positive. Let's look to the future and keep the faith. Okay, then that's it for me. Take care, and we'll be back in pre-season probably. We'll probably do one or two specials. I know that Rhys Brumberg, the new CEO, has agreed to come on the pod, so we'll have a chat with him. We'll look forward to that. Might be able to get David Wright on as well, though that could be a little bit tricky, but we'll continue to get really good guests on the pod for you. So until next time, take care and goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Dragons Lair podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe, rate and review wherever you listen to us, as it really helps spread the word. You can find us on all the usual social media channels or email us on welshregionalrugbypod@gmail.com. And remember, whatever the question is, rugby is always the answer.
Social Podcast Network.
High Five Casino.
High Five Casino is a social casino with real prizes and big Vegas hits at highfivecasino.com. The hottest games right from Vegas, and all winnings go straight to your bank account. Hundreds of exclusive games, free daily rewards, and come back to get free coins every 4 hours. Only at highfivecasino.com.
High Five Casino is a social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details at high5casino.com.
High Five Casino.